Welcome to our IBRT webinar. I'm Janet Cunningham. Out of the way. And I'm going to introduce our presenter for today. Many of you already know Georgina, and some of you don't. So Georgina Cannon is a clinical regression therapist and an award-winning teacher of regression and spiritual hypnosis. She trained with Michael Newton and one of the really early pioneers in our field, Henry Bolduc. She teaches basic and advanced hypnosis at the University of Toronto, is an NLP trainer, an accredited teacher for the National Guild of Hypnotists, and a certified life coach. And Georgina really blends all of these modalities to enable change and growth in her clients, which is so valuable. And I'm sure that all of you are open to that as well. Georgina has experience in teaching and working with the medical profession, in grand rounds in hospitals, in the classroom, and demonstrating the benefits of regression therapy. She's the author of many books, the most recent being Return Again and The Third Circle Protocol. And you can find them at georginacannon.com and her bookstore. Georgina is a valuable member of the IBRT's board of directors. She's smart, well-grounded, creative, and fun to work with. And I love the title of today's presentation, Changing Karma? Yes, you can. I believe that Holly has a few announcements, and then Georgina will go ahead with her presentation.
Your sound is off, Holly.
Please have your audio on mute while the presentation is going on, and your camera's on so we can see you. And if you have questions, they'll be welcome at the end of her presentation. So you can hold those for that time, please. And she's got information for you in the chat if you want to get her email address. So we will proceed and begin with your presentation.
Great. So welcome everybody, and thanks for IBART. That's the name we call ourselves, the IBART people. It's a sort of use of the initials that sort of easier to say than IBRT each time, but so IBART. So welcome and thank you for your interest in this. I'm going to be talking about karma and different versions of karma and what people see as karma and how people use it to escape real life. I'm very pragmatic in my practice, and I avoid allowing clients who come to me to do what I call spiritual bypass. In other words, go into spirit or go into alternative thinking for problem solving, solution solving. So let me get this up and share screen. We're going to start. Do you have it? Everybody have it? Yeah, good.
Yes.
Good, thank you. Yeah, okay. So basically, I'm going to be chatting about for the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, and then afterwards we'll take questions or concerns or comments.
Excuse me, Georgina, there's kind of a black thing over your screen. So look at what you've got going on there.
Better?
No, there,
No.
there.
There it is.
That's good.
Yep, okay, thank you. As you can see, we're all learning on the job with Zoom and everything. So I'm going to be talking about how I work with clients and help them change their perceived impact of karma on their lives. Firstly, a brief description of what we all consider karma. We know we're spiritual beings in a physical body. And that body is manifests in words, actions, and thoughts. And we know how powerful those are, the thoughts and the words. And the belief that karma affects our being is pervasive with every religious group, and I don't care which one you talk about. But everyone defines it slightly differently. But both Hinduism and Buddhism confirm that it's not a punishment, it's an opportunity to learn, which I love. It's an evolution towards the light. What goes around comes around, basically, is what it is. So how do we deal what comes around? Before I go into more about karma, I have to tell you a story that happened. It's a funny story. It's an embarrassing, funny story. When I first wrote the book, Return Again, in 2012, I think it was, Shirley MacLaine happened across a copy of it. And I got a call from her office into my clinic saying Shirley would like to interview me for her radio show. So I said, fine. I was so excited. I was jumping up and down, as you can imagine. And then the following day, I got a call saying, Shirley can't make it on Thursday. Can you make it Saturday evening, your time? And I said, yes, of course. And I'd totally forgotten I was having a dinner party for a whole group of women, because I used to have them when I had a house with garden. I now live in an apartment. I used to have them 4 times a year for all my women friends who were on the go. So I never knew whether they were traveling or not. So I never knew whether it would be 12 people or 20 people or 30 people, but we'd all have a lot of fun. It was very noisy and lots of laughter and lots of food and drink. So I'd forgotten was having one that evening. So at 6 o'clock, they started to arrive. And as they came in, I said, Shirley MacLaine's calling tonight. They all went, oh, yeah, right. So we're sitting down, we're having drinks and we're laughing, we're eating. And suddenly someone says, is that your phone ringing upstairs in your office? And I went, oh, Shirley. So I went running upstairs. I picked up the phone and they're all yelling up the stairs. Hey, Shirley. Hi, Cheryl. And she said, what's going on? So I said, well, we're having a party. She said, well, hold on a minute. And she went away and came back. She said, I've got my own little party here. Okay, so let's continue. Now she was recording this. It was for her radio show. So one of the questions was, so Georgina, why don't you tell our listeners what's the difference between Buddhism and Hinduism's version of karma? And my mind went totally blank. I totally forgot what I'd written. And, you know, dead air is not exactly charming or attractive on radio. So I said, I've forgotten what I wrote. And she said, would you like me to read it from your book? So she read from my book what I'd written. And I felt so embarrassed, I can't tell you, but she thought it was fine. And it was great. We became friendly after that. I wouldn't say we'd become bosom buddies, but we'd become friendly. So that was about my version of karma with Shirley MacLaine. But to get back to the client, I find that when clients come in, we get some that are blamers. They come in and something's wrong with life, and they come in and ask to do a past life regression because they can't get along with their family, or they can't get along with their boss, or and every place they go, or they're lonely, they can't seem to make friends, and they think it's the karma, and they believe that it must be a past life, so they want to do past life regression. So they blame the boss, they blame the mother, they blame the government, of course, don't we all? They blame their father, sister, or brother, they blame the weather, and they blame karma, and they say, it must have been something I've done in a past life. I must have been a terrible person in a past life. So it must have been something. And I say, it's not always, it's not necessarily so. Let's do some more delving here. Because if we go into a past life and it doesn't give you the answers you want for this question, you won't have achieved your goal. So I don't let them do that. And I say, let's think of karma as if you've been dealt a hand of cards. So you've been dealt this hand of cards. So what are you going to do with these cards? How are you going to organize them for your life? how are you going to make them work for you, wherever you are? And we're lucky enough to be born in North America. We could easily have been born in Afghanistan or the Sudan or the poorest parts of Africa or Haiti. But even there, even in concentration camps, there are some people that rise to the occasion and make their life valuable. They care, they share, they don't become victimized. They own themselves. So what do we do with these cards that we're given? How do we make them work for us? Well, we have choice. We either give ourselves and turn them into a royal flush, or we flush our life down the toilet. We get to choose. And pardon the pun here, I couldn't resist. So we get to choose which way we want to make our life happen. Otherwise, we don't have any power. And my goal always is to help the client find their own power. My slogan, if you like, is that I help my clients find their magnificence. So I want them to find their power. So they've obviously lost it somewhere along the way. So we're going to help them make a decision to use their power. Somebody needs to mute themselves, please. So Stephen Covey, I don't know if you know who he was, but he was a business advocate. He was a well-known businessman who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He wrote that book. And this is what he says. I'm not a product of my circumstances. I'm a product of my decisions. And I truly believe that. I truly believe it. We are what we choose to be. From the minute we wake up in the morning, we get to choose who we are and how we are every minute of every day. As an example,
one of my greatest memories was sign-up day for the start of school. The principal looks at my mom and dad and me and says, he can't come here. You know, like, why not? You know, we live right across the street. No, he has to go to the school where kids like him go, you know, on the other side of town. And my mom was, well, why? You know, why does he have to go there? Well, Mrs. Law, you know, he's has to go where the crippled kids go, you know, using an old word. And my mom went, he's not crippled. You know, the principal looks at me and looks at my mom and says, well, he's got no arms. What do you call that? And my mom went, Alvin. Like, that makes sense, doesn't it? So I've got no arms. So what? But I remember that became the biggest challenge. You know, it wasn't having no arms. It was a world that said having no arms isn't cool. I had to gather courage every single day to leave the house to go to school. School scared me. I was obviously not going to be an athlete. I figured that one out very early, you know. But music, I loved music. My mom tells me that I'm going to be in the band. But the fact was, the call had come 2 weeks earlier, the first call from this band director guy. He phones my mom, Mrs. Law, my name is Mr. McClary. I teach band here in Yorkton. And do you have a son named Alvin? Yes. Does Alvin have a talent for music? Well, we think so. We're not sure. Well, Mrs. Law, he got 96% on a music aptitude test at school. Really? Yeah. So we're just wondering if you'd like to join the band. Well, my mom, of course, sure, why not? You know, what instrument? Well, Mrs. Law, with that kind of talent, he can just pick any instrument he wants. So, of course, my mom's thinking, you don't know him, do you? Oh, no, we just got his phone number here. Well, you know, Mr. McClary, you should know, Alvin has no arms. And then it was quiet, you know. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Law, we didn't realize that. Sorry to bother you. Click. I mean, that was literally what happened. And you'd think, oh, well, so much for band. But this guy was amazing. He figured out a way that I could play in the band by using my feet to play a trombone mounted on the side of a chair. And I would just play it like this. And who knew, you know? I mean, it was a huge moment. Being in band was everything to me. It was all the stuff that I couldn't do, didn't matter anymore. I could be in the band. When you learn that it's about what's inside of you instead of what's outside of you, then you've got power. That's when you learn the power. The strength is not on the outside. Anyone can buy an image. When you've got strength in here, that's when you've got the power.
In this beautiful life, there's always some sorrow.
And so I believe that's our job. I think our job, my belief system is that our job is to help our clients find their own power within themselves. Past life regression and life between lives is a tool, but until they know who they are and what their strengths are, and we can help them find them, the lessons they get from the past life journeys and the life between life journeys may not be as useful as they could be. So what do we do? Well, I have a protocol that I call RPRP. Sounds fine, but what is it? It's looking at the issues they have, what they come for you for. Why do I always choose losers? How come I can't keep a job? How come I don't get along with my family? I feel like an outsider. We look at it and we frame, we practice, reinforce, and proclaim. So let's go into it in greater depth. So the reframing is really about looking at what they're doing currently, because actions and behavior make us who we are. The actions and behavior come from the thinking and the patterns that inhabit us. But what we actually do makes us who we are. What we do comes from our character and development and our value system. If we are clear about our value system and we act according to that, then what we do and how we behave changes. So we look at whether they're doing judgment of others, judgment of self. Do they feel powerless in these circumstances? And they have no sense of what is possible. Their perceived impotence. And we help them reframe using a whole variety of techniques. And those of you that have done coaching training, or you've done some training with teachers who taught you some therapy techniques, tools, will have some of these handy for you to use. But as people change, they go into fear because they're moving beyond what they know. They're moving into something that they are scared of. They don't know what they're going to become. I remember many, many years ago, I was going through therapy. And at that time, I was a writer. I was in marketing. I was in an advertising agency. And I used to wake up terrified that if I changed, I would lose my creativity. I would become empty. So I spoke to my therapist and I said, what happens, Dr. Acker, when I'm empty, when I get rid of all the stuff I want to get rid of? What happens? And he said, Georgina, you can fill yourself with anything you want to become. And that was so powerful for me that it sort of resonated round and round in my head. It was also terrifying, of course. What do I want to become? Well, I wanted to become an astronaut, but it wasn't possible at that time. So this is what the client goes through. So they move from the comfort zone of where they are, knowing what they are, lonely, always choosing losers, always fighting with the family, whatever it is, it has a comfort until the pain gets too big. And then they come looking for change because we move at the speed of pain, basically, right? So they move out of the comfort zone into the fear zone. This is where they're going to really need you. This is where they're going to need hand-holding and to be able to understand it's okay to be frightened. It's okay to be fearful of change. It's okay to be fearful of moving into the unknown of who you're becoming. And you can get to choose who you become. You move into the learning zone and then into growth, empowerment. This is the time when the light goes on in their eyes and you see them going, got it. Got it. Anything's possible. So we then practice, and this is where the fun happens. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, I ask the client to change their mental state. So I have something called a magic wand. I don't know, can you see this, guys? I'm holding up to a camera, my magic wand. It's a ridiculous looking thing. I got it from a toy store, and I get them to close their eyes and I put it in their hand, and I ask them to imagine 3 alternative ways of being around this issue. 3 choices, 3 flavors, if you like. What does those 3 flavors look like? What do those 3 flavors appear like? What do they sound like? Have 3 choices. And then sometimes I use my dowsing rods. I'm sure all of you have these tools in your clinic, have dowsing rods. And we measure the energy around each of these 3 flavors. This is all out of hypnosis. Sometimes I use a pendulum. Depends on the client. If they're a business person, or a businessman particularly, very stuffy, quotes, I wouldn't tell my clients they're stuffy, but stuck in the old way of thinking, I give them the wand because it breaks state. They laugh, it's ridiculous, but it gets them thinking differently. So they have 3 choices. They verbalize them, and then I put them into hypnosis. And we visualize and experience each one of those choices in hypnosis. And as you know, in hypnosis, we can experience how it feels, how it looks, how it sounds, what's the reaction. We live each one of those choices. You identify the strengths and weaknesses of each choice, and then they get to choose which one to move forward with. Then they come out of hypnosis, and their homework is to write a plan to move forward. They now have their goal. So now they write a plan. That's their homework. They write a plan, and then they come back into the clinic and we practice that plan. This is where coaching comes in. We practice that plan and they move forward over the next month, 3 months, 6 months. It's actually changing step by step. They reinforce by journaling for 21 days. If they can, or if they're interested at all, I do encourage it that they meditate on their change. And I send them to the dollar store to get some gold stars. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I want them to use the other part of their brain. I want them to be silly, because only when we're silly and we practice being childlike and creative can we be inventive and make change. So I get them to have a calendar and use gold stars for inch stones. Not stepping stones, but inch stones. Every tiny little advance they make, they give themselves a gold star. I sometimes get a text saying, Georgina, I spoke to 5 new people yesterday, gold star. Or Georgina, I let my dad go off on his tangent and I didn't argue with him yesterday. I just let him be himself, gold star. Great, this is all good stuff, right? So then, as a practitioner, we acknowledge their movement forward and we help them recognize the discomfort, because they may be losing friends along the way to get new ones. And we confirm that they're on the right path. We handhold them during the change. Then they celebrate. They choose to be who they are becoming. And I keep pointing that out to them, how precious that is, how extraordinary it is, and how resilient they are, and how smart they are to start owning themselves, and what a change it's going to make in their life. And there may be parts of their family that don't like this change because they're now putting up barriers or boundaries for the first time. That's all okay. But I explained to them they're both the engine and the steering wheel of their current life. They're no longer being pushed around by anyone or anything else. They own their future choices, and they can't blame karma anymore because they're making their own karma. They're changing it. They've made it different. It's so extraordinary to watch them make those changes. Now, I don't know if you probably do, Viktor Frankl. He was the psychiatrist and the Holocaust survivor. A brilliant man. He wrote the book Man's Search for Freedom, which is one of my favorites of all time. I'm sure you've read it. If you haven't, I suggest it's worth a look at. I hand this out to every client that is making change. I have it framed, or I used to have it when I had a clinic. As you know, we've all closed our clinics right now, but it's on the wall of my clinic, framed. And I give my clients a copy of this if they're making major changes. Between stimulants and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. When people are shouting at you, this is what I tell my clients, when your dad or sister is yelling at you, or your lover is treating you badly, you can either react or take a breath and respond in your power. You get to choose. You get to choose who you are and how you are. And this whole process can take as little as a month or two, depending on the client, or 6 months or a year. But the change is manifest and their life will never be the same. One last word from Roshi. I don't know if you know him or know of him, but it's quite wonderful. His work is wonderful. The more you sense the value of your own life, the more you realize that how you use it, how you manifest it, it's all your responsibility. We face such a big task, so naturally we sit down for a while. And when he says to sit down, he means to meditate, of course, but that can be sitting and being quiet, sitting and planning. It can be sitting and dreaming. It can be sitting with your back against a tree and connecting with nature. How you make your life every day is your choice. And then once a client gets that, and once they understand that, I then book them for their past life regression session or their life between lives session because they're ready. So I hope you've enjoyed my version of Changing Karma, and I'd love to hear any questions you have or any comments you have right now. You can unmute if you wish. Holly, everybody looks stunned. Is it okay? Are you okay? Hi, Anna. Yes.
Do you have few words to say about predestiny and where that fits into this picture?
I believe yes, the destiny is what's given to us. What we do with what's given to us is our choice.
Thank you.
Yes, Michael. You're on mute, Michael.
I think I got it. Sorry if it takes so long. I totally really love what you said about that, all of it. Do you bring into that somewhere along the line belief systems?
Of what?
Belief systems involved in that first part?
Of course, it's belief system. So that's what we do. We change the belief system.
Right. I mean, as far as spiritual belief systems.
I think once you own yourself, you can have any beliefs, any spiritual belief system you like. So you can be a spiritualist, you can be a Catholic, you can be Jewish, you can be Christian, you can be any one of the African belief systems. But what you do with it is choice.
Right. So in other words, you incorporate their own individual thought process.
Totally.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
No, totally.
I have a question.
Sure. Hi, Greg.
Do you ever tie in this reframing and creation of their future life, or how they're going to come into themselves after doing regression therapy?
No. Well, let me say, it's not that definite. What I say to my clients when if they're what I call blamers, I don't tell them that. This is in my head when I'm calling them. They're not taking responsibility themselves. What I say to them is, look, I'm happy to do a past life regression session with you. Absolutely. You may not get what you need if we do it right now to answer the issue you've come in with. If you've come in with a question or a belief that you need a past life because you always choose losers, or you can't find someone to love you, or you are lost, or you feel you don't have a life purpose, you may not be ready for the answer, or you may not get an answer that works for you. It's like building a house without a foundation. Because sometimes I say to them, what the issues that we're facing are not from a past life, they're from this life. So is it okay if we look at that? I mean, if they insist on having a past life, we do it. But
Okay.
I really think if they've got issues, for instance, I think it was 3 months ago, I had a guy who was sent to me by his company because he was supposed to be leading a team and he was a bad team leader and he didn't get along with anybody. He was rancorous. And he said, I think it's, because I was a warrior in a past, I was told by a psychic I was a warrior in a past life. So can we fix it? So I want to go back there and, get my warrior. So I said to him, well, we can do that, but it may not fix the issue you're looking for. So if you want to spend the money and the time, okay, but my suggestion to you would be we do it the other way around. And I explained to him what we do. And I say it's your choice.
Okay.
That makes sense, Greg?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Olga, you disappeared on us. Everybody's stunned or quiet. Julie, hi.
Hi. How do you explain it to clients? Just if somebody came in like that guy you were just using as an example, how would you explain this process to him?
Very similar to what I did with you. I would say to him, sometimes we get into patterns, either from an early life in this life, or we pick them up patterns from our parents that are not helpful to us. And like a fish in a bowl of water, we don't know we're in those patterns until we're taken out of them. So if you're having trouble, you don't feel this trouble, but your company feels this trouble, you're having trouble being a team leader, maybe we need to look at the issue rather than look for the reason from another lifetime. Now, if you really want to spend the time doing a past life, fine, but that's not why you're here. You're here to solve the issue.
Are people generally receptive to that?
Some are, some aren't.
Yeah.
Some are, some aren't. I mean, if they really want to solve the problem, they'll do what it takes to solve the problem. If they really want to do a past life, then I'm very clear in saying, we do the past life, great. And it may show you some patterning that has nothing to do with the issue. You may find new patterning, for instance, why you love music so much, or why you love the outdoors and you feel more comfortable in the outdoors than you do in an office. They may show you that, but it won't give you the answer you're looking for. I can't promise you that, because the soul takes you where it needs to go. That's how I explain it.
Okay. Thank you.
I know this is pretty radical for regression therapists, but this is how I do it. I'm very pragmatic. From my point of view, past life regression and life between lives and any spiritual work are just tools They're only tools to make this life better, because this current life is the most important life we have. This is what we're dealing with right now. And right now we're making our karma, if you like. We're evolving the soul, getting ready to move up the ladder or closer to the light or whatever. I really feel that we have to deal with the issue that they want change.
I guess,
Mhm.
so my comment is that there's a presumption that there may be an impediment in the person achieving what they want.
Yes,
And so then optimally go to where that impediment was created and
that's
how,
right. That's
which
right.
may be in a prior life, and
It
then
may, that's right.
bringing healing to that.
That's
That makes the reframing in this life easier.
That's right. So what I do sometimes, depending on the client and depending on the issue, by the way, we've lost you. That's it. Depending on the client, depending on the issue, I quite often use timeline, because we go back to the initial sensitizing event, and that could be past life. It can be in the womb of their mother, or it can be early life in this life.
Right.
So wherever it is. But I don't let them be blamers. Own it. Own it. Make it yours. Do what's needed to change it, so you become whole and in your power. You're here for a job. You're here for a purpose. Be in your power. That's my thinking.
That's good.
Anything else? Everybody's either stunned or quiet, or if you disagree, I'd love to hear. No?
I don't disagree, but I have a little different experience with it. And that is
Okay.
to use regression therapy to go back to find out where the victimization and the lack of power starts, and to see what their role in that is. And usually, if they're powerless, they've had lifetimes where they've been overpowering. And once they see the overpowering lifetime in relation to their victimization this lifetime, and they realize that they've created all of it themselves, that whole schism, that whole duality starts to collapse, and the karma dissolves. So that's kind of how I've worked with it and how I've seen it. And I totally agree that your present life, it's all about present life. It's all about empowerment here and now. The empowerment is a huge issue. But I see past life work as a way to bring in the transpersonal level of why me, so they can see that they are creating it themselves. And that's where the empowerment comes. They start to take responsibility when they realize that they've created all of these schisms around their difficulties this lifetime.
Yeah, I agree. But this is being used this way specifically for blamers. You know, and people by and large who blame karma usually blame everybody else and everything else for everything. They don't own
Right.
themselves.
You're right.
So it's for that personality, it's for that type of person. And also for the people that come in and say, I was at a past life regression party and I was told, you know, one of that things. Yeah. So, yeah. I was a slave trader, and I feel terrible. What am I supposed to do with that? Don't go to those parties. It's the first thing. Yeah. Anna, any questions? No?
Light isn't around my, oh, there it goes. I'm just noticing that both you, Georgina, and Holly, in your own ways, are emphasizing how important it is to go into depths, whatever that depth may be.
Yes.
I'm sure that many of you have had occasions where you've just had one chance to work with a person with a past life regression. And I've had some of that as I did travels, and just one opportunity to see them, and I would never see them again. And they wanted the past life regression. And as we get to that important event. I have the strong belief that people come to us as we are able to serve them best. And when that happens, then I know that the person can just go to where they need to go, and we can go into the depth that we need to go, and feel assured that whenever they leave, they have the information that they need. But I love the opportunity that you're talking about, and that Holly also does, I'm sure, to go into deeper parts of that experience for them, so that if they are not able to move into a healing space on their own, if they need more assistance, you're really emphasizing how important that is. Good.
Yeah. And also, if they're not ready, for instance, if a client, with one of my clients, went into the body of a snake, if he wasn't ready to understand what symbolism was about, if he hadn't done the work beforehand, it would have been just confusing. Because although he was told that he's got to get ready to let go of one skin so it allows a new one to emerge, that symbolism wouldn't have connected for him if he hadn't done the pre-work. Not everybody needs it, but this again is for blamers, people who come in who take no responsibility for the way they're living, who are always looking for an outside reason for it to work or not work. You know, I mean, you've all had clients who come in and say, you know, I'm overweight because my mother made me clean my plate when I was a kid. And you say to them, well, how old are you now? You know, I'm 43, and really? So, you know, it's that sort of mentality that we're looking at with this type of protocol.
Anna, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to say two things. For myself, in terms of these being tools, I can support that, because through hypnosis and through the regressions and the interlife work, what it brought out for me was it amplified the patterns. So I could see in this lifetime that amplified the theme from all the, compilation of that work. And I could see that, oh, I do have free will and I do have agency. And I've been putting my attention on the scarcity in my life as an example, as opposed to creating and living as if, I had it. I could see my options and reframe that for myself. So it was incredibly powerful. So I get the tool part of it,
Yes.
which is great learning for me in being with clients. And the other thing I wanted to say was I've been working with a client who she's had experienced hypnosis before, and she's experienced, past life regression, and she wanted to use past life regression to have that facilitated to deal with a particular issue. So we jumped into that. It turned out that her patterns of anger and a certain narrative just kept coming up in each soul story that we visited. And so what I did was I just retracted and said, okay, we have to go back and do a thorough intake on what the issue is, because clearly you have this theme showing up in this lifetime and it showed up in these past lives. So we just said, she wanted to do another past life regression. I said, no, there's anger. Let's look at beliefs and perceptions in this current life.
Yeah.
And then when there's been some understanding, then we'll go further and try and understand some other pieces to this.
Exactly.
So
great. Yeah. 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 Terrific. Okay. Anything else? We finished really early. Look at this. Yeah. Comments? Nothing? Holly? Is there anything else we can do?
No, not unless everybody has any more questions. Okay, yeah. Julie.
Yes. Hi, Julie.
Hi. At the risk of being a little bit irritating, I'd like to ask I'm curious about this example you gave, the man with the bosses who sent him in.
Yeah.
What would what would his three flavors or choices have looked like? I don't know if you can, with
I'm sure.
confidentiality. I'm just curious what an example would look like for him, for somebody.
Well,
Or
first of all,
blame, or what are they gonna
he blamed everything on Zoom, first of all, right?
on Zoom?
On Zoom, yeah, that was a go-to.
Oh, okay.
First of all,
Okay.
he said, well, it'd be different if it wasn't on Zoom. I said, well, you've been in this job for 2 years, humph. I'm trying to remember what his three flavors were. He's three, and I got him to use this, I know you can't hold it, but here it is. It's a magic wand. Do you have anything handy that you can pick up that's a magic wand? So I get him to look on his desk, right? So just imagine the three flavors. What were it? What were they? Oh, yes. I can't remember them all, but I know that one of them was his vice president on his team, who was vice president of human resources, who didn't take enough responsibility. So it started off by being blaming again, right? And I had to bring him back. And then he could see himself. I think one of them was sort of going up the ladder. I honestly can't remember, but going up the ladder and being okay and getting applauded and getting a bonus at the end of the year and all of that corporate stuff. Yeah. But to get them to stretch and the brain, get them to move beyond what is every day and what's possible. That's why I like the gold stars or anything that's slightly ridiculous. They feel silly. And when you feel silly, you're not so rigid.
That's a good one.
Mm. Yeah.
Can I make one more comment, if that's all right? I use a lot of the concept of the law of attraction in setting intentions so that when someone has in their mindset everything is going wrong, we look at setting the intention to change that before it even begins with positive love. And I ask them something they're grateful for so that they can feel that and then go forward. It may not be regression, but at the same time, it gives them the opportunity to switch that negative. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, vision boards, or anything to do that gets them to move beyond where they're stuck.
Absolutely. Permission to take the risk of succeeding.
Yeah, exactly. That's why that fear of change was put up there to show that they're scared of changing, but they could see. And I talk about children, when children are learning to walk, if they take 2 steps and they fall down, boom, they take another step, boom, but they get up again. If they didn't, we'd all be crawling around on the floor wearing diapers. If we didn't do that. So what it gets them to laugh, gets them to loosen up. And I think it's very important that they see the possibilities of what could be. When we learn to tie our shoelaces, how long does it take us the first time around? Now we don't even think about it. So all of the stuff that we're used to, that we had to do for the first time, puts us in a place of fear or trepidation or fear of being wrong or fear of being judged or fear of looking foolish or whatever it is. But that's growth.
I'm sure you've read the book Gift of Fear by
Yes.
Gavin de Becker. I use that as an example a lot. When we live in fear, it becomes part of our family.
Yeah.
It's all the time.
Yeah. Well, we change. Yeah. I like to be more positive about rather than living in fear. It's a place you visit and leave as you move into comfort and growth. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? I wonder what happened to the other people who were supposed to be coming.
I don't know. Well, people's lives take over,
They do. Well, at least they've got this
So
is being
I'll just
recorded. So
make an announcement for the next gathering, which is my privilege to do. And I'm doing a topic on spiritual emergence versus spiritual emergency. And my background is in transpersonal psychology, and I'm going to give you an overview of how this concept of spiritual emergence was developed by Stan Groff, who is really the father of modern transpersonal psychology. And then I'm going to go over some really practical ways that you can help your clients who are showing signs of spiritual emergence or spiritual emergency. and how to resource them and to make their journey more palatable and more safe for them. And also what to do if it looks like it's moving into an emergency, what the signs of that are, and how to make appropriate referrals for clients who need more containment than we can provide based on our practice, our skills, our licensure, and all that. And one of the things I also want to do is invite you all to think about your own spiritual emergence. And when in your life did you go through a period of opening that was profound enough to give you a shift in your consciousness, a shift in your perspective, a shift in your life focus, and what you went through. So we'll have time to have a little journey around that. And then I'll have everybody share through the chat about their experience a little bit. And that'll kind of be the basis from which we jump into the material with the presentation. And I'll have that available on slides as well, so you can have it as a reference after our meeting.
Great.
And the
Holly,
date.
what's the spiritual emergency? What do you
Well,
consider
it's
spiritual?
well, most of the time when people have a spiritual emergency and they go to doctors or therapists, they're treated like they're having a psychotic break when they're not. And there's symptoms that are very similar, but the contents of it is often very different. And the way that it needs to be supported is very different than what traditional psychology brings to the table.
Okay, so they hear voices all of a sudden, or they see visions. Is that what you mean?
Well, that could be some of the symptoms. I'm going to go over a whole bunch of different symptoms that people may have and talk about that. But because our paradigm in Western culture, especially in psychology, is still so body-brain oriented and not spirit oriented, many people have gone through the system and have been really, really poorly supported and actually damaged because of medications and because of being hospitalized and all that, where what's really indicated is giving a construct of support, normalizing education, and slowing the process down so that they're not on overwhelm and they don't feel they're crazy. So we'll talk about that. And I've got lots of material to share with you on it and lots of good references. We've got some movies to share that you can look at and some books you can look into if you're interested in more depth about this topic.
Great.
Okay. And the date hasn't been completely solidified yet because I had something come up in my personal life where I had to change the date, but tentatively it'll be the first week of August, and you'll be getting emails from us to confirm it after our board decides what the date's going to be. Okay. So
thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for your
attention. All good to see you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Georgina.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgina. This is Olga.
Oh, hi, Olga.
Hi, I wanted personally to thank you. And you know, I'm just learning everything. I'm just absorbing, and that's why I need to digest. I need more time, and then think, rethink, and that's the process.
Okay, good to see you.
Oh, I'm so happy, and I would love to continue with all that.
Good.
Learning. Yes.
Good.
Very
good.
Yeah.
See you soon. Okay, lovely. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.